Modeling only takes you halfway. Rendering is what completes the project. Don't underestimate night renders. That's where the real magic happens. Hi everyone. In this video, I draw an exterior plan in AutoCAD, and then I turn it into a 3D model in 3ds Max. We're going to review the materials, take final renders of this scene, and do the post-production. I draw a rectangle that is 12 meters by 9 meters. I explode it. I offset it 1.25 meters upward. Then I offset 6 meters from the right side. After that, I offset 0.25 meters. I set the wall thickness to 0.25 meters overall. I trim these lines. Now I offset the surrounding walls. I connect the lines using fillet. This area is the car parking, so I give it a small offset. For example, 0.07 meters works fine. I trim the extra lines. I offset 120 centimeters for the door. Then another 120 centimeter offset. Now I add a 3 meter offset for the window. I trim the door area. I add another offset to define the window location. Finally, I trim the extra lines. For phase 2 of the plan, I use X-line. I draw these lines along the walls, doors, and windows. Based on these lines, I delete the extra lines. I offset 3.1 meters upward. I add a 0.3 meter offset for the ceiling. Then another 3.1 meter offset for the first floor. I trim the lines. I move these lines next to the phase 1 plan. I create the house floor. Again, I trim the extra lines. As you can see, very easily, with just a few lines, offsets, and trims, we can draw a full plan. For the roof, I create 3 10-centimeter offsets. Using Extend, I extend these lines. Now let's move on to creating the windows and the terrace. As always, I work with offsets. I add a 0.3 meter offset downward. I do the same for the first floor. I also add a 0.3 meter offset here. But for the upper floor window, I set the sill height to 0.5 meters. Based on these two lines, I trim the rest. I add a 0.6 meter offset around the upper window. I also add 0.6 meters for the terrace. Finally, I trim the extra lines. And that's basically done. I had already made a symbol here, so I place it for the door. I also want to create a pool in the yard of this house, with dimensions of 10 meters by 4 meters. I explode it. First, I offset 1 meter upward and 5 meters to the left. I trim these lines. From this line, I offset 4 meters downward to set the distance between the pool and the house. Then I move the pool downward using move. I delete this line. I create several pool steps using offset. Alright, now I import this plan into 3ds Max. Stay with me. In Customize Right Pointing Arrow Unit Setup, set the units to centimeters or meters so your dimensions stay accurate. In the Import section, I bring in the plan and set it to meters. I detach this part of the plan. I move the pivot point to the bottom center of this shape. Now I rotate it 90 degrees and place it here. Using line, I create the house walls. I create the middle wall separately as well. I give this wall an extrude of 310 centimeters. I can also drag and drop the extrude modifier onto this line. Now I draw the house floor and give it a 2 centimeter extrude. Next, I draw the ceiling of the ground floor. I want it to have some overhang. I draw the walls using line. I attach this line to the other one and apply extrude. (950 centimeters). In the top view, I place it in the correct position. I copy it and place copies in the middle and at the end. I no longer need those two lines. For this one, I apply a 20 centimeter extrude. I go to the top view and place it properly. I extrude this other line as well. I move this wall back by 20 centimeters and move this one by 2 meters so this area becomes a terrace. Now let's create the roof section. I create 3 10-centimeter elements. I place the first one in its original position. Then I make 2 copies. I move the top one back by 16 centimeters and the middle one back by 8 centimeters. Let's build the garage door model. Using a box, I draw it from this side to here. I set the length to 10 and snap it into place. I move it to the correct position. I hide the rest of the objects. Now I convert it to editable poly. Using bevel, I give it some extrusion. This amount looks good. Now I copy it downward. For example, about 30 times. Very precise. With Shift+S, the lines are hidden and unhidden. Let's move on to building the pool. I select a line and draw around the perimeter. Using outline, I give it a small value, like 2 centimeters. Now I extrude it by 200 centimeters. To create the steps, I use a box with a height of 20 centimeters. I could use Array to copy them, but I'll just copy them manually. I place them one by one in the correct positions. Each one goes 20 centimeters lower than the previous one. Alright, I also create a floor using line. If you're enjoying the video so far, please hit like, and if you're not subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate it if you do. Leave a comment too. I move it downward and make a copy for Boolean operations. I need to increase its size by more than 2 meters. I move it down into the pool. I draw a plane, make it a bit larger. Now I convert it to Pro Boolean. In subtract mode, I click Start and select this volume. The pool section is created without any issues. I forgot to cut out this window. Using a box and Boolean, I create this opening. I import the windows and doors into the scene. I move them and place them in the correct positions. Alright. Using Quick Slice, I want to fill this gap. So I convert it to Editable Poly. Select this polygon. Draw from this door to this point. And finally extrude it. If you're enjoying the video so far, please hit like, and if you're not subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate it if you do. Leave a comment too. Alright, I've added grass to the scene using forest. And these are trees that I've converted into proxies. I created a plane for the water material, and I also added some lights on this wall. I've also added a surrounding wall around the villa. I exit the camera view, and I placed another camera from this side as well. But I'll use this angle for the night render in the next part of this video. These two lights are just to slightly boost these areas that don't receive much light. They help make the render feel more realistic. These lights don't affect the trees. I've already explained how to create proxies before, but I'll quickly explain it again. Select the object you want. Then choose Open Corona Proxy Exporter. Give it a path, and leave the rest of the options as they are. Using proxies doesn't remove these objects from the render. It just speeds up the render and makes your scene lighter. Now let's go to the materials section and quickly review the materials. This material is for the pool. The next material is for this part of the wall. And the next one is for these areas. These materials are basically the same, just slightly lighter or darker, and I selected them from the Corona library. This is the HDRI for the scene. These two materials are for the rolling garage door. This one is for the interior walls of the villa. This material is for the surrounding wall, also selected from the Corona library. This is the pool water material. I've already made a video about creating a water material, and I'll link it above. I fully explained it there. Just remember to enable caustics. And this is the mosaic material, which is also available in the library. Alright, now let's add the render elements for post-production. Direct, reflect, refract, Z-depth, masking ID, caustics, needed for water, shadow, and 2C text map element. I don't set the Z-depth distance too high. About 23 meters should be fine. I set the masking ID to material ID. Caustics don't need any special settings. For the C-text maps, we need to add 2 Corona AU maps. I go to the materials section. For the first one, I set the radius to 1 centimeter. For the second one, I set it to 10 centimeters. Now I connect them here. I do the same for the second C-text map. Alright. In the System tab, there's nothing to change. In the Performance tab, make sure to enable Caustic Solver. I don't change anything else here. Make sure to enable denoising. I set the quality to Full HD and start the render. After the render is finished, I continue the video. These are the tone mapping settings I used. Exposure, 0.30. Contrast, 1.50. I also added a curve. Alright, these are the render elements. Alpha. Direct. Reflect. Useful for the windows. Refract. Useful for the pool. Z-depth. Masking ID. caustics, I'll select only the pool in Photoshop. Shadow. And the C-Text maps. I import all of these into Photoshop and continue the video. Stay with me. As always, I duplicate the main layer and move it to the bottom. I turn off the rest of the layers. If you're enjoying the video so far, please hit like, and if you're not subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate it if you do. Leave a comment too. The first C-Text map layer should be set to multiply. I don't think it needs opacity adjustment. You can see its effect here. And a bit on the grass as well. I set the second C-Text map to multiply too. But I reduce the opacity slightly. 70% works well. For the shadow layer, I test which blend mode works best. Lighten works best overall. I lower the opacity a lot, around 10%. It reduces the pure black areas of the shadows. I might increase it later. For the caustics layer, I only wanted to affect the pool. So I go to the masking ID layer and select the pool. Sorry, I selected the wrong layer. I go back to the caustics layer and add a mask. Now I set it to screen mode. I also lower the opacity a bit. 80% works well. For the Z depth layer, I test different blend modes. None of them looked great. Maybe soft light. I lowered the opacity a lot. It darkened the scene slightly, but for now, I won't use it. For the refract layer, I again wanted to affect only the pool. First, I set it to screen mode. Using the selection tool, I select the lower part of the image, because I also want that slight effect on the wall lights. I add a mask, and the effect is removed from the windows. I need to reduce the opacity a bit. 80% should work well. For the reflect layer, I don't want it to affect the pool. First, I set it to screen. Then I select from this area upward, and I avoid selecting the ground since it loses contrast. I apply the mask. And you can see the changes by comparing the result. I set the opacity to 40%. For the direct layer, I test which blend mode works best. I think soft light works better. I set the opacity to 10%. I want to brighten the sky a bit. I use the alpha layer to select the sky. I do this on a new layer. Since these areas are vegetation, I remove them from the selection. I use a blue gradient. Then I lower the layer opacity. "25% looks good to me. Let's compare it with before. It looks much better now, especially the pool. I increase the shadow layer opacity slightly. 20% is too much. 15% looks good. I also add a curves layer and adjust the brightness a bit. The overall contrast of the scene looks better now. Alright, I've turned on the lights and added the hidden lighting. The ceiling lights and the halogen lights are also set up. I also added some objects inside the scene so the house doesn't feel empty, which is very important for night renders. This is a helper light that supports the wall lights. These sphere lights are used to brighten the overall space. I placed some of them behind this wall and also behind the house. And these lights are only placed in this area because they're visible to the camera. Alright, these are the changes I made to the scene objects. Now I go into the material editor. In the previous part, I explained the materials in more detail. Here, I only adjusted the brightness of the HDRI to make it closer to a night look. Now I just want to show the light materials. This is the material for the hidden lights. This one is for the wall lights. And this is the material for the terrace ceiling lights. Alright, the render elements were already set in the previous part. I don't need caustics here, because only the pool area is visible, and caustics at night don't work the same way as during the day. In the Performance tab, I disable the caustic solver. Denoising should stay enabled. Finally, I set the image quality to Full HD. I start the render, and after it's finished, I continue the video. Great, this is a very good render. The tone mapping adjustments I made look good to me. I tweak the curve a bit, and this looks better. Now let's quickly review the render elements. Most of them are pretty much the same as in the previous part. Alright, I import these into Photoshop and start the post-production. First, I duplicate the main render and move one copy to the bottom layer. Then I turn off all the other layers. I bring the C text layer to the top. I change its blend mode to multiply. Its effect is very noticeable, especially on the vegetation. The second C text layer has very little effect, so I don't reduce its opacity. For now, I don't work with the alpha layer. I set the shadow layer to lighten. I set its opacity to 20. The effect around the lights looks really nice. I increase it a bit more to 25. For the Z depth layer, I need to see which mode works best. It looks like soft light works best. So I set the opacity to 10. I set the refraction layer to screen. An opacity of 30 works well for it. I also changed the reflection layer to screen. Its opacity needs to be reduced a bit. 70 works fine. I change the direct layer to screen as well. I keep its opacity low, around 20. Now I bring the alpha layer up. I want to select the sky and improve its color a bit. So I create a new layer. I paint over it using a gradient with this color. From this angle, it looks better. Now I adjust the opacity. "40" looks good. I want to add a few stars as well. I pick this color. Create a new layer. I choose a suitable brush for this. This brush works well. I scale it down a bit and rotate it. That looks good. I add another one over here. Now I lower the layer opacity. Around 50%. Looks good. Now I create another new layer. I want to use a brush to add glow to the ceiling lights and halogens. This looks nice. I make it smaller. I change the color. Now it looks better. I do the same for the halogen lights, just making it a bit wider. Now I want to use a brush that creates a halo effect. I select this brush and paint it over the image. For the halogen lights, I make it smaller. This looks much nicer. I also reduce the opacity of the stars a bit. Now let's compare the before and after. The difference is very clear, and the render really comes to life. I also add some glow to this light. In the render, the visibility of this light was turned off, and this fixes that issue. Even though the raw render was already good, the magic of post-production always makes the render better. I also make the stars brighter. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope it was useful for you. If you haven't liked the video yet, please do so, and don't forget to subscribe to support me. See you in the next video. Goodbye.